Good evening and welcome back to Mystic Matters. We are on the start, Kristin, of 2017. So welcome back, viewers. There's been a lot going on. Kristin, I know there's a lot going on down at the Chamber. So why don't you, out of the gate, you start?
Well, Suzette, so glad to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, everybody, to our loyal fans. We're so grateful to keep this show going over a couple decades, isn't it?
Well, you know, one of our guests, who you'll meet really soon, asked me then. I think it's right around the 20-year mark, but you'll have to ask Frank Ficini on that. I don't know. I really actually don't know. One day the Chamber said we should start a TV show, and I said, I don't know how to start a TV show. What do you do?
And then
here we are.
So
just a little bit of the history of it. It is one of the member benefits for the Chamber, and it has worked out for a lot of the small businesses who pay their membership, and it probably doesn't have a lot of let's say money that, you know, to advertise or to talk about their businesses. And also Mystic Chamber of Commerce and Mystic Matters also get behind our nonprofits and some of the issues that we tackle within the region and the community. So it's a great venue to get that word out there. And again, wonderful year coming up with Kristin Hartnett. And we're going to have a great year, aren't we?
We are going to have a great year. We just opened our Welcome Center on Greenmanville Avenue. It's right across from the Mistick Seaport.
That's great.
It's a fantastic location. It's going to be great for our members. One of the things our stakeholders wanted us to do was to have a visible location,
right, to be more
for their membership. So we are doing that, and we're taking off.
Right. And so one of the issues that we're going to be bringing up at the start of our show, again, the Chamber does get behind our members and especially our business members and, of course, the community. And so we have some great community members with us tonight, and I want to just introduce Chris Regan to my right from Old Mistick Village, and Stephen Bessette, who wears many hats, was a former selectman for the town of Stonington and is coming through today as a very concerned citizen to what we're going to be the topic is at this evening's show. So why don't we take it from you, Stephen, to set it up for us and what we're going to be talking about this evening.
Sure. Thank you, and good evening, and thank you for having me on here. I've always watched the show, and I've enjoyed watching you for the past 20 years.
Do we have to say 20? Because okay. I remember Mom very dearly.
My mom was very integral to the part of the Mystic Chamber.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I learned from her guidance and her wisdom that it is about a community. It is about the Mistick area, the Stonington area, and really what I learned from her, and I convey that to everybody I meet, is that Mistick is a special place. It's dear to my heart, it's dear to my family, and I think it conveys to those that come and visit the Mistick area that it is truly a special place.
And I think that if it was going to be a quote from Harriet Bessette, you said it well. So we are here today taking that to the next level because we want to have a topic. We have a topic here tonight that, Chris, I think you've been very involved in too. So again, set it up for us and let's see where we go with this.
Well, it's about the high-speed train that's potentially coming as a bypass through Old Lyme, through the surrounding towns, and through Mistick, where we have the village and the aquarium, and then going into Westerly. Which is, you know, a bypass that's only going to save 20 minutes to get from New York to Boston. And we've got to figure out a way to get this bypass to go on the existing tracks. And we need to get the local residents to understand what the impact is that's going to be on our area. Which, you know, where the proposed line right now goes through the aquarium and the village, and that could change 5 miles. So anybody that's within 5 miles of that line could have the high-speed train go through their property.
So the Federal Railroad Administration came up with a plan, the Department of Transportation, just correct me if I'm wrong, and they say this is what we want to do for the region, from like Washington, D.C. all the way to Boston.
That's right. About 3 years ago, actually it's probably been longer than that, the FRA, the Rail Administration, put forward a plan, and the plan starts in Washington, D.C. and extends to Boston, Massachusetts. And within this plan, there's probably about 150 smaller plans. And one of the major plans is the area called the Kingston Kenyon Bypass. And the Kenyon Bypass runs from Old Lyme to Kenyon, Rhode Island. And the primary focus is to, in a sense, make it a straight line, as straight as it can possibly be, bypassing the shoreline route that goes down through downtown Mistick, downtown Westerly. And the bypass that Chris had mentioned is actually pretty much a straight line that will extend from Old Lyme, Waterford, Groton, Mistick, Westerly, through the Narragansett Indian tribe holdings and into Kenyon, Rhode Island. And the objective of that is, in one sense, it's a sound reasoning is that they want to have a straighter line, which I'm fully in favor of rails, but the design and the location of this map impacts every community in many different ways. One, from a historical perspective, secondly, from a small business perspective, and thirdly, from a community perspective, because it rips apart Old Lyme, it rips apart Mistick, it rips apart Westerly, it goes right through their aquifer, and it goes right through the Narragansett tribal lands, which, again, that's a different perspective, but we have to be cognizant of that's their land. You're going to a sovereign land, and then they'll have a tunnel that comes right up in the middle of a 300-year-old farm, which, again, the rail is already, it's very close to her property, but this will bisect her property completely. So we here in this part of the state have been very vocal to those out there in the community. We have support from Senator Blumenthal, Representative Courtney. We have all of the town selectmen from Old Lyme, Waterford, East Lyme, Groton City, Groton Town, New London, Stonington, Westerly, and Charlestown. All of those communities have come forward as their elected officials to say that we are against this plan, and we think there should not be this type of plan. We're in favor of a plan that is objective, that looks at a high-speed plan that takes into consideration what we currently have, but not one that disrupts our community to the extent that this plan does.
Now, and this wouldn't be
Absolutely.
construction that would just be like 9 months worth. This is construction
Oh,
you're
this
talking
is
about
Years.
Years.
years and
Yeah,
years.
years. But
In terms of construction, one thing to keep in mind is the plan also has, they need to cross the Connecticut River. And one of the plan objectives of that plan is to do it on a fixed bridge. What that means is that the bridge that they plan to design will be at the same height as the two spans that are already there. So the plan is, and visualize this, in between the two bridges, there'll be a rail pass that goes between the two. In order for the train to get to that height from Old Saybrook,
oh, it's got.
it'll have to be elevated all the way up through
Right.
Lowe's, through Crystal Mall, and as you come into by where, say, Staples is in New London, it'll be at already 65 feet. And as it comes out of Groton, or into Groton, it'll continue at that height, come down a little bit, and then as it comes through Mistick, it'll be at 55 feet. So imagine that train being at 55 feet above your head, going right through Old Mistick Village. It's not going to be a train at ground level, but again, it will be, the impact will be tremendous, and it'll be very disruptive.
Well, but Chris, I mean, when it's all said and done, and we're all there thinking about this, I mean, this is eminent domain, and we can. Another thing is too, we have jobs that we can be providing for, and they're going to be building this. Well, why not?
What, to do the train?
Right.
Yeah,
Playing
no.
devil's
Devil's advocate, I would say.
Understand, we are absolutely against this, but they're thinking. So
Well,
to flip
I think with the FRA, they weren't in front and center in our community by holding public hearings. They had it in New Haven, December of 2015. Stonington and Wesley were left off the list
Yes.
of people to contact for the meeting. In regards to the Tier 1, the FRA basically says that it's just conceptual, but if they get that Tier 1 passed, we're stuck with it for 45 years. And so within 45 years, they could fund it and then build it within that 5-mile radius
right.
from the line,
Right.
which would be devastating to everybody.
Absolutely, in the future of our town. And just some information, a few weeks ago there was a rally held on Chris's property, the family property, where the stakeholders came out, community residents, and I think people as far as Old Lyme as well.
And Charleston.
And
In
Charleston came out on the property of the Old Mistick Village and said, no way is it's going to be happening. But Stephen, you know, you've been in politics. We both have been entrenched in politics a long time. where do you see this going, and what can the community do to help?
I'll start with where the community can help. The first they can do is go to seacoast.org. That has actually been a very vocal group in terms of the opposition. The nice thing about this site is it's actually very balanced. It talks about the rail plan in a very positive manner, that we are in favor, they are in favor of the rail as a way to enhance our economy, the way to enhance jobs.
Right.
But they are also against the way it disrupts our economy in terms of digging up and digging through various parts of the like Old Lyme, through Waterford, through Mistick. So they give a very balanced approach. And I think the way community people can get involved is write to their congressman, write to the FRA. Is it FRA, NEC?
NEC
Excuse me,
Future.
Yeah.
it's NEC.
Right here,
at
right.
info.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. You can write an email to them. They'll receive it. It will go in the letter that has been received. The comment period, though, does close the end of this month. And the record of decision may come out on March 1st.
Right.
We don't know when that record of decision will come out, but it is soon to be published.
Right.
And so keep that in mind. Kristin spoke about the Tier 1 study. The next part is the record of decision. That record of decision will be, once it's in place for 45 years. While they're not going to dig tomorrow, once it's in that plan, we need to fight to get it out of the plan. And it's easier to get it to be not in the plan than to
Exactly.
get it out of the plan.
Exactly.
So I've taken the position, as of others. Greg Stroud from Seacoast and Chris and others have been out very vocal in terms of their opposition to it. I think if you go back and you look at Senator Blumenthal's, where Secretary Chow was in her nomination, he asked her point blank about it, and she did say she will take it into consideration. So we have positive movement in terms of a commitment from our elected officials. Now it's just a matter of us being able to stop it from the NEC level, or excuse me,
Well,
the FRA level.
it's like up at the state level. The Transportation Committee, we testified in front of them.
And that's
they
pretty recent.
That was within the past 2 weeks.
Right.
And everybody from the chairman to all the committee members, there's 40 committee members on it, they were 1,000% behind us in regards to opposing the bypass, because there's no benefit. I mean, New London, we have 21 high-speed trains that come through, only 2 stop. And in Mistick, we get 24,000 ridership, and the economic benefit, I think for us, is if we take the high-speed train and go from New Haven to Hartford to Springfield to Boston, and then get Connecticut to own the tracks from New Haven to the Rhode Island border, which we already own from New Haven, to the New York border as a metro, and they have 40.5 million people that ride it a year. And if we had the ownership of the tracks from New Haven to the Rhode Island border, we would have a metro, it would be cost effective, we'd probably have more ridership.
Right. So that sounds like a great solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
But are they going to be hearing solutions? Do they? I mean, I know, Chris and I talked a little bit about this, and as I was listening to it prior to the show, I said, but that just makes sense. In this world of senseless, that just makes too much sense, Chris. So, Steve, are they going to be listening? So, when I listen to people, I always say to them, okay, here's what you're against, but where's the solution? Come up with a solution. So do you think that they are even thinking about another solution?
Yeah, I think they've looked at many different alternatives. One, as Chris mentioned, was the plan to go from New Haven to Hartford to Springfield and over. The original plan, actually the original study had 5 different plans, I believe. One was actually do nothing. One was a tunnel from basically through Long Island Sound.
A tunnel?
A tunnel.
Yeah.
That was quickly put away. Another was to focus on the corridor route going up to about Rocky Hill and then shooting over to, I would say, Stores and then over to Providence. Again, a lot of it had to deal with the topography because trains don't like to go up hills. It's very inefficient for a train to go up a hill. So again, remember why the train was put here in this part of the country to begin with. It was very low, very flat, not too many people wanted to be near the water. The first interstate train was between Stonington and Providence.
That's correct.
Actually, the founder of that railroad still lives in, their descendant still lives in Stonington.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's interesting the history that Stonington has to the trains and the impact that it's had on our community. what I'd really like to see is Shoreline East come to Mistick, come to Westerly.
That's my favorite
You know,
issue.
I think
that's the best
something-
solution.
I think it's one thing that we can drive, one thing we can promote to our local legislators, that Shoreline East, we got to get these people off the highways. And what better way to see Mistick than come up on the Shoreline commuter? And if we can get that commuter line from New York to Boston, it'll be a home
That's
run
great.
for everybody involved.
And I remember that because Steve, you have been very vocal, Shoreline East, and I remember a couple of years ago, even you had sent some information out to the chamber years ago. So I think that's but that again, a solution.
A solution.
A solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, part of the fear is that the water levels are rising, and this is why they want to move the tracks.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned water, because this train plan, as they have it now, will go right through Westerly's water aquifer, which some people say is the best water in the world, right? But the problem with that is you now destroy that water aquifer. They now have to look at a different place to get water from. And the plan, in that plan, is actually a desalination plant. Well, in order to do that, you need to be within a half a mile of the water. So I don't know anybody along from Watch Hill to maybe Narragansett that's going to want to give up their beachfront property.
Right.
Unless it's Taylor Swift.
Right. Right.
But
Which,
there's a
yeah,
few other
we
properties.
We
that
could,
would
we could
fit.
ask her, but.
But I don't think that's going to happen. So here you have a rail plan that will destroy a water aquifer, which is pristine. Only that the solution then has to go off and spend millions of dollars to put a new water desalination plant in, which is crazy. It's ludicrous at that perspective.
So the other thing is, Chris, right before the show too, we had a little bit of a conversation. When did this come on the radar? And you would think as big of a project as this was proposed, that Stonington and Mistick and Groton would have been right at the table having these conversations. When was the first time that you had heard about this?
I heard this after, they had the public hearing in New Haven, which was December of 2015, but I found out from my mother. I was driving back from Boston, and Joe Woviotis from the London Day called her up and said, "Joyce, the high-speed train's going through your property." And she said, "What? Are you kidding me?" And she said over her dead body she'd have the train go through it. And so that's when we first found out about it. That was in July, and I went to a meeting down on Old Lyme in July after I heard about it, where Senator Blumenthal had a press conference at the town hall, and Old Lyme had 50 people there. I was the only one from Mistick at the time speaking about it, because nobody really knew about it. And then from the next meeting, it went to the middle school, which had 500 people at that.
Right.
At the middle school. And then the last one I went to was another press conference he had down at Old Lyme. That was in the fall, when they finally decided that out of all the four alternatives was this bypass as being
So this
alternative.
bypass was the
Preferred alternative is how they call it.
Out of the four, this was the preferred.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the NEC future plan extends from Boston to Washington, D.C. And within this plan, there's probably, I would say, 80 to 90 different little plans. And each community around on that is impacted by this has had the chance to respond. The only community that has been as vocal as we are is us. I mean, this part of the area of the impacted line has been the most vocal, has been the only one that has stood out against it. All of the other communities, they have the rail that goes right through their life. I mean, that is part of their day. You look at Baltimore, Philadelphia.
Sure.
Others,
They wake
just
up,
want to
this is
expand it a little bit.
yeah.
Here, this is a dramatic impact to
Yes.
our community. So
But it's the biggest stretch.
it's the biggest stretch. It's
Right.
50 some odd miles.
50,
What is it
59
again?
miles?
50 some odd miles.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, I didn't. Yes.
And they didn't have a public hearing in that section.
Well, I guess this is what I was getting to. It's like, well, wait a minute. We this is such an important subject, and when was the first time we heard about this? Because they didn't have a
Well, it's
public
like
hearing.
I told Frank's from Frank's Gourmet Grill. I asked him if he knew about the high-speed train, and he said, "High-speed train? What high-speed train?" I said, "It has potential to go right through your building, basically take your business out." And he was so devastated by just the news of that, that he was, he's lived in Mistick most of his life. And he took his Monday, his day off, to go up to Hartford and testify, and he was the last person to talk about it. That's how passionate he is about it.
Number
Right.
292
I
or
think,
something.
well, I think we've all been up at the legislative office going, oh my God, that lottery that we got.
You
know
pull a
what I
ticket
mean?
at
You
like
pull a
8
ticket,
a.m.
Yeah.
And then
right.
you testify at 3 p.m. Yeah.
But
after,
I commend,
it's crazy.
I commend the citizens like Steve Bessette and also Chris Regan to get on board, because I wasn't able to make the rally, but looking at the news the next day, there were quite a few people there, and 100, I think well over 100 people. But to get also the legislators down there and the congressmen, the senators, was really huge. And I am also very proud to say, I mean, Steve, you said we have been the most vocal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think within that 50-mile radius, we are going to be the ones that are going to be the most impacted.
Yeah, and I don't mean we being Mistick.
No.
I truly mean from Old Line
Right.
to,
Right.
There was a
The
rally.
50-mile.
Exactly,
Yes.
thank you, yeah. We saw a rally up in Providence. The governor of Rhode Island has come out against it, and they had 200 people up in Providence at that rally there against it. And most of those were concerned citizens from Westerly, the Narragansett tribe in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
They all went up there, and that kind of spurred us along. And Chris and I were, joking one night. And he said, "Let's have a rally." And next thing you know, we had the No to Tier 1 rally, which I thought was a great success. And
Absolutely.
it brought together, not just Mistick people, but it brought to us as a community together on something that we can tangibly touch. We're not talking about some policies out of Washington or
Right.
immigration. We're talking
Right,
about something
right,
that's going to be right in our
right.
backyard, that it's going to have an impact to us on our daily lives. Not that those others won't, but this is something that we can stop and have a tangible impact on.
Right.
And you don't want to regret not speaking up about it.
Right.
After the decision's already made, then, we should have said something.
Right. So what is the feeling now? Where does anybody have any kind of understanding what they're thinking right
Everybody's
now?
trying to get meetings. I'm possibly going to go down and have breakfast with Blumenthal down in D.C. and then try to get a meeting with Secretary of Transportation Chow to talk about the Tier 1 decision for the bypass, and hopefully get them to take it out of the bypass. I mean, out of the Tier 1
actual-
decision.
yeah,
They've done
plan.
it. The people at the FRA, they had an open house up in Springfield I went to, and they have done other studies where they've taken out certain sections of the decision. So with all the amount of letters that have been sent by everybody, and hopefully we get more letters by February 28th to them to say a big loud no.
Now, the Chamber of Commerce, on our website, we do also have an article and some letters of dissent so that you can just copy and paste them and send them off, and all the emails that that you might want to send to. So if you go to our website and look for that article, you would be able to communicate that.
Right.
I was going to ask about that, about the potential for that, if that's happened in the past, if there's a precedent, and you're saying that there is a precedent
done
for
it.
having it removed from something before it goes.
Yeah, I mean,
to
initially
plan.
FRA would say, well, the Tier 1 is just conceptual. So then we turned around and said, if this goes to record of decision, how long is it, basically we're stuck with it for 45 years. So it's really not conceptual, because once it's matter of record, now we're dealing with it for the next 45 years.
What
of
I'd like to
potential.
imagine is that at the Department of Transportation or the FRA or Chow's office, that they've got those huge mail bags and then they come and empty them out. And it's just like, oh
I
my
think
gosh, what
Kristin
happened
likes
here?
the visual as we're pulling the mail bags, okay?
But
getting
it's
them
all
on the-
email now. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's probably jamming up their.
Let's hope.
their mailbox. I think one thing to keep in mind is that the FRA, somebody's been tasked with this project. This project has been delegated to an individual who works for the government, and they're doing their job. So, what we've got to make sure is that person understands the impact that it has to us. Because once we make it personal to them, I think they'll grasp it. But right now, they're sitting in an office somewhere in Virginia or DC, and they're doing it as a policy. They're saying, this is our policy that we want to move it forward. But as soon as we can make it personal to them, and we can make it personal to Chow or whomever, I think they'll be able to understand that, because that's where and how we will influence them. It won't be because, no, we don't like it. It's because it's, we don't like it, but, this is what it's going to do to us. And that's what we need to communicate to our legislators and to communicate to the FRA, that this is something that, it's not something we're taking lightly, and we need to have your ability to see it from that perspective. Put yourself in our shoes.
That is a great, you said personal 3 times, and I think, as we wrap up the show this evening, people will sit back in their living rooms and say, well, you know what, let Chris Regan, Suzette, Tibus, Kristin, Hartnett, and Steve Bessette take care of that. You know what I mean? Let the stakeholders, because, we'll be behind you all the way, but that actually is not the case. You think that, and we do, but you can get on your computers and you can make it personal, and you can go to the www.necfuture.com and make a difference. I think, in today's age of computers, you can just get online and do it. It's not a matter of handwriting a letter, although handwriting a letter is also making an impact. When I get a handwritten letter, I go, huh? So maybe you should handwrite. I know Joyce Resnikoff would. But anyways, I'm just saying that, Steve made a very good point, that we need to make this personal. The community needs to own this. And again, railways, we're all for it. Get people out of their cars. But I think both is a good solution. We've come up with a both great solution here tonight. But get to your computer and write that letter before March 1st.
Yeah.
So it's February
28th.
28th, and certainly we want you to understand that the Chamber of Commerce is definitely behind this as well.
Yes.
Too. So get with that. Do it right now. If you have a problem writing the letter, listen, cut and paste, right? It's right here. So
protest right now.
right. But. Chris, thank you so much for taking charge, and I know this is very important. You've got a very busy schedule, so thank you for taking charge, and I know this is very dear to your heart. And Stephen, thank you. Stephen comes out, and if there's something that's got to be done,
We're going to get
right
it done.
there, I get more emails from Stephen Bessette, but thank you. He's more than just a concerned citizen, and I don't want to take that for granted. We all are concerned citizens, but
And I do, just to promote that, I do keep the Stonington Community Forum Facebook page pretty current on that this issue.
And thank you so
and
much.
others, so feel free to follow that. Also on the Bring Shoreline East to Mistick Facebook page as well. So if you want more information, you can find it there.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Kristin. I'll see you next week for our next show.
All right.
We are the Greater Mistick Chamber of Commerce. Mistick Matters. Good evening.
Awesome.